Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Audrey Lewis, Marketing Specialist at Tealium, and I'll be your moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes with time for a Q&A at the end. With that said, please submit your questions so we can walk you through their answers live. For any questions that we aren't able to answer live, we'll follow up with you after. Lastly, we have some related resources available for you in the attachments and links section of the platform, so please feel free to engage with them at any point. Now on to today's presenters. Jake Spencer is the Director of Product Marketing at Tealium. Jake has spent the majority of his career working for enterprise technology brands in all aspects of branding, digital marketing, and web analytics. Dan Corden is a 2-year Tealium veteran on our solutions consulting team. Prior to Tealium, Daniel spent 5 years consulting clients in the ad tech industry as a senior sales engineer. Daniel uses this ad tech and digital analytics experience to uncover new use cases and highlight the power of Tealium's customer data hub. And with that, let's get started. Jake, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Audrey. Appreciate the intro and appreciate all of you who've taken the time to join us for a little bit of a look under the hood with Tealium. Here's what we're going through in the next 30 minutes or so. I want to just give everybody a little bit of orientation to Tealium. If this is your first time kind of checking out the product, checking out the platform, we want to give you an idea of, why we, what our mission as a platform is, why we exist, how we help businesses, and some of the things that you'll be seeing during the demo today. We'll talk about some of the products that make up our customer data hub, and I'm going to pass it over to Dan for the good stuff, which is giving you a look into the platform and walking through a pretty good use case that I'd say today. And then we'll also have Q&A at the end. Dan and I will be around to answer any questions that you have. So please, throughout the session today, ask questions, submit them throughout. If Dan and I can handle those in stride, we will. If not, we'll try and get to as many questions as we can with the time that we have left during the Q&A portion. So let's just get everybody a little bit oriented to Tealium. What we exist to do is kind of a fundamental problem around data that plagues and is a hurdle for many businesses. Tealium, ultimately, our mission and our reason for existing is to connect data, specifically customer data, so that you, brands, can connect with your customers. And the reason we do that is because we really feel that customer experience is the new battleground. That is how customers are won and lost, based on what experiences that you're providing them, what personalization opportunities that you might have, what things that you might be able to drive in terms of engagement and experience and insight that's unique to that customer, and do that at scale through data. We really believe that the companies that can innovate today understand their customers through data. And we really hold that as kind of a key differentiator for your brand. If you can understand your customer through data, we think that you can innovate faster, move quicker, and provide better customer experiences, and ultimately win that battleground of customer experience as well. The fundamental kind of approach to doing that, we think, is a unified approach. There's many different tools and technologies that we think you're likely out there using to drive customer experience, to drive insights, to drive advertising. There's many sources of data, whether that's a marketing cloud or DMP, personalization tools, websites, your CRM, mobile apps, social, display, call center. That data, that customer data, lives in many, many different places. And our job is to bring that all together in order to provide a unified view of your customer, where they're engaging with you, across which channels, how often, what they're interested in, and then allow you then to activate that and use that unified approach to data to then go and drive customer experience, insight, better advertising, better engagement, and hopefully ultimately revenue growth. So how specifically does our product help with that? We have what we call a customer data hub, and it's got a couple different components and ultimately exists to build what we call a data supply chain. So let's go through that here really quickly before we jump into the demo. We have data collection and quality as a kind of comprehensive feature set of our customer data platform, a single point of collection and delivery for customer data at about 1,000 destinations, where you can get customer data, collect it, and do that in a first-party first manner, bring it together, and get it anywhere that it needs to go across your tech stack. What we have on top of that is you start to build those kind of building blocks of event data, of things coming in from your website, your mobile devices, your CRM systems. Ultimately, you want to turn that event data into people data. Hey, exactly what are people doing, and how can I start to work in terms of audiences? And that's where our customer data platform and predictive insights capabilities come in. Really taking that building block data that you've created with our data collection and quality products and starting to create that audience level insight out of it, creating a unified view of your customers, building audiences, driving predictive action, and doing that across every touch point and vendor in your entire digital ecosystem. So that's our customer data platform and our predictive insights layer, Tealium Predict ML. And last but not least, we think it's important to then own that data and make sure that that data's use is extended across the enterprise. And so we have some data management capabilities as well, so that you can store and manage your customer data. What I would say is probably your most important source of data that are driving your business, in order to drive new insights and extend its use across all of your enterprise. And then finally, ultimately activating data requires integration, also collecting data, but mostly going through and ensuring that the data is used across all of your different analytics applications, mobile, web, CRM. We provide the industry's largest turnkey market integration marketplace with about 1,300 solutions, so that you can power your stack with unified, trusted customer data, and do that with ultimately the flip of a switch. We provide no-code turnkey interfaces in order to get all of that data that you've collected and managed at that point, and get it out to power your experiences, your insights, your advertising, whatever that might be. And ultimately, this is the data supply chain that powers. This is kind of the vision of what our products ultimately provide, is an end-to-end real-time data supply chain, allowing you to collect data, standardize it, ensure that it's quality, that it's trusted, it's in the format that's usable by your enterprise, transform and enrich it, give context to your data, additional insight and information upon which you can act, and then ultimately integrate it and activate it out to your tech stack. That is our customer data hub, and you'll see some of that in action today during the demo. Now, how do businesses use this customer data hub? It provides different value to different business units. And so we see marketers using our customer data hub to ultimately own the customer experience. And that's some of what we talked about at the beginning, but doing things like personalizing at scale, driving quality growth across the entire customer journey, or even optimizing budget by better understanding your data. So knowing who not to go advertise and engage if either A, they've already bought a product, or B, they're probably not likely to buy a product in the future. For data and analytics leaders, ultimately being able to own your data, being able to drive more modeling and less time cleansing data, activating insights throughout the stack in less time, uncovering new relationships with data, and inspiring more trust in machine learning initiatives, and finally developers being able to really more quickly and agilely build a best-in-breed tech stack. So being able to future-proof, A/B test new vendors very quickly, reduce time spent on integration and improving data security and compliance, and ultimately allowing your engineers to go spend their time and resources on building on top of those integrations, rather than going through and managing the integrations themselves. And ultimately, why why would you go through and kind of take this approach, this data supply chain approach that we've gone through? Ultimately, we feel that there's better business value and better data. Whether that's focusing on governance and privacy, building a data supply chain to help brands know what's coming into your business, or what data is coming into your business and where it's heading, driving better advertising analytics and customer experience, ultimately using that data to understand your customers, innovate, and provide better experiences. And then last but not least, operational efficiency, reducing time spent on ad hoc integration, freeing up developer time, ensuring that that time and money and your developer team is spent wisely by providing and leveraging a platform with turnkey integrations. So almost to the demo here, that's just a quick orientation of Tealium, what sort of business benefits we typically provide, how we go through and work across the business, and how other companies are using Tealium. We want to show you just a little bit of a look under the hood. So here's the demo that we'll go through today. What you'll see is obviously end-to-end data orchestration from collection to activation. You'll see us work with some data sources. Today, Dan's going to be working with first-party web data and offline data. Other sources that you might be able to use with that you can use with Tealium: mobile, call center, CRM. You won't see those in the use case today, but other demos that we've done in the past will show that. You'll see us grab some events. You'll see us build audiences based off of those events. And you'll see us activate that in Salesforce CRM. But again, much other or a world of possibilities that you can go through and leverage, like ad tech analytics, personalization, mobile, cloud infrastructure as a service, engagement, voice of the customer, whatever that might be. But that's the use case Dan's going to walk you through today. And Dan, I will end the slides and pass it over to you to head to our demo.
Great. Thanks, Jake.
Yep.
Go ahead and share my screen here. And you should be seeing the Tealium platform now. And just as Jake was saying, Tealium creates what we call the customer data supply chain. And this is ultimately how you build your first-party data strategy and how organizations build their first-party data strategies, from where their data is coming from to where their data is going. And this is a visualization that will live in the Tealium platform, or that does live in the Tealium platform. We have, and I'll walk you through each one of these very briefly. We have data sources, where your data is coming from, and I'll go into that in more detail in a moment. Each one of those data sources produce events. Events could be someone signs up for a promotion on your website, or they make a purchase. Each one of those are events. Those are then inspected and QA'd in what we call event specs. They are then visitorized and added to profiles, which I'll get into more in a moment as well. They can then be activated into audiences, which trigger the downstream connectors that we have pre-built into the platform. So let's go through each one of these. Data source is the ability to collect data across any of your customer data touchpoints, or the engagements that you have with your customer, whether it's engaging with your customer in a web-based environment where we can use TIQ, our tag management solution, but we're also agnostic to your tag management solutions that you may already have in place. We can also use our SDKs to capture data from your mobile environments or connected devices, communication platforms, developer languages for those other offline data sources, or even a flat file import if those data sources just need to be brought together within a flat file. Those data sources are then added to the platform through events, and that can be inspected through event specs. Event specs highlights the data as it comes into the platform and allows you to QA each data point as it enters the platform, such as a page view, for example. When a page view enters the platform, you can label that as a valid event, an invalid event, which would be labeled as red, or blue, being it contains no spec. For events that contain the proper specifications, they're considered valid and will be labeled green, such as this page view event that I have brought in, where we're containing the attributes that we're expecting to receive. But once those events are captured, you're going to want to define the attributes and the events that make up the personas of the customers that are most meaningful to your business. And we give you 13 different ways to do that through visit or visitor level attributes, such as a badge or a number. And I won't go through each one of these, but they can be assigned as attributes to assign the value to your customers. So a number can be used to calculate the customer lifetime value, or a tally can be used to capture different events and keep a tally for every time that event happens for that individual customer. And so I'll show you what that looks like for an example I've created, and I'll get into here in the custom demo in a moment. But products viewed, for example, you can tally each different product that a customer might view on their website, and that will automatically then produce a favorite. So you automatically have a favorite product that your customers are viewing, or maybe even it's a favorite product that a customer is purchasing. And this can be sent to your downstream tools, such as Salesforce, which is an example that I'm going to use today. But also we have the ability to share that with personalization tools for personalizing on your website, or personalizing the creative within the ad tech environment. All of those are capabilities that Tealium allows you to create when you're building this first-party data strategy that's keeping track of how your customers are engaging with your brand. Once these attributes are created, you will want to add them to audiences, which determine how they're built into your downstream connectors. So for example, I've built an audience of someone who has a favorite product but has not completed the purchase. And once someone is assigned to those audiences, they are then assigned to the connectors associated with each one of those audiences, whether it's using our connector marketplace for connecting to your ad tech platforms, your email platforms, or even your CRM platforms. And an example that I've built today is using Salesforce and sending this data directly to Salesforce to update your Salesforce records. And this is all done within a simple 3-step process where you connect your data source, you configure your Salesforce authentication, and then you decide what data you want to send to Salesforce. In this example, I'm sending the products viewed favorite to the favorite product section within my Salesforce environment. So let me show you exactly what that looks like in a tool that we call Tealium Trace. So Tealium Trace allows you to view how this data is entering the platform in real time. And so if I use our e-commerce site, we can start to see what a customer journey would look like within Tealium Trace. So if I view this linen blazer a couple different times, it will start to be assigned my product favorite. And when it becomes, and as we see each one of these events being added to my profile in Tealium Trace, we can also see that I am assigned a product favorite based on my views of this linen blazer. And once I continue my journey, I will go log into my account as Daniel Corridon. Welcome. But I end up not making the purchase, and I end up leaving the session or leaving the website altogether, where I kill my session. And that produces another set of events, which ultimately send actions and send triggers to your downstream environments, which we see here sends data to Salesforce and updates the lead within Salesforce. Once that's accomplished, we can go check Salesforce, see how that data would be updated. I'll refresh the page, and now we see linen blazer has been added to my profile, and I've shared this real-time data based on my engagements with the web environment to the downstream tools that would utilize it, in this case Salesforce, but that same information can be shared with your personalization tools or be updated for your display environments. Any of those environments are available. And for that concludes the demonstration today. Thank you very much for your time.
Let me unmute my mic here. All right, thanks, Dan. So we've got a couple questions in here that I want to make sure that we finish up with and capture. Again, if you had any questions on the content that we went over, any questions on the demo that Dan just walked through, let us know. We've got some time here at the end to take some Q&A. So the first question, Dan, was, do do you use Tealium IQ Tag Management? I know you touched on this a little bit, but I would say to kind of kick us off on that answer, no. We've built our own tag management system for a reason. We think our approach to building a data layer on the client side is one that should be considered. However, we know that other customers are going to have tools that they love, that they want to use, whether that's Google Tag Manager or you've set up on Adobe Launch. As Dan said, we're kind of taking an agnostic approach. Wherever you have data set up, we'll be able to bring that in and make sense of it. And so no, you don't need to. We have ways to get data from Google Tag Manager and Adobe in a very turnkey fashion, much like the other data sources that Dan showed on his demonstration. Dan, anything I'm missing there?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it all. That's a great question. And there are certainly benefits to using Tealium IQ when you're using the rest of the Tealium platform, but it's absolutely not required. We have many different ways to capture web data as well as other data sources like a call center or offline data.
Yep. Next question, and this is an interesting one that I'll pose, and Dan, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off. We looked at web and online data today. Let's say, for instance, in your demo, you looked at your linen blazer on the web, you went and looked at your linen blazer a little later on maybe a mobile app. How we saw some instances and trace of visitor stitching. How is it that Tealium helps companies recognize customers across different devices, data sources, technologies, however they might be engaging?
Yeah, great question. So Tealium uses what we call deterministic identification. And that deterministic identification allows you to bring your own identifiers that are unique to your customers, whether it's a visitor ID or a customer email. Each one of these identifiers can be used within the Tealium patented visitor stitching technology that allows you to stitch users across devices or experiences using those unique identifiers. Every time we see that unique identifier, we know that that is Dan Corden. And that can be true across a mobile device, a website, or really any engagements that you have with your customers.
And I would say, as we see more, as you're working with known and anonymous profiles, that visitor stitching capability allows you to go through and replay that full customer journey. As we start to recognize Dan based on an email or based on whatever identifier, we stitch those profiles together where we've seen that. You're able to see that full customer journey as things get stitched together in the customer profile. And so being able to work across that really provides you with that full funnel view of exactly how Dan or anybody else is going and engaging with your brand. Last question, and again, thank you everybody for your time. We'll take this last question here, and then if there's any others that come through in the moment, great. If not, we'll finish up. We worked with Salesforce today, Dan. Obviously you showed a couple different ways that we are able to quickly integrate and activate data out to the tech stack. What other integrations might you suggest, or what other systems might be a good candidate for a use case with this favorite product, no purchase audience that we created today? Any other kind of thoughts on, hey, CRM, what else might you be able to do with some of that insight?
Yeah, great question. So one great insight would just be sharing that with your call center. So when a user receives, or one of your employees receives a call from that customer, they know what their favorite products are, and they can suggest that product or be aware of what the status of that product. There's all types of different use cases that the call center can benefit from. There are also capabilities within ad tech to personalize experiences or personalize display ads that customers see to bring back that customer to the site and remind them of products they've been viewing. It's been proven to work as a channel that it can be effective for bringing customers back to the site, and that's a great use case right there. Personalizing experiences as well once they enter the site, that's a very powerful experience for driving customers to ultimately make that purchase.
Yep. I would say as well, a couple of things that came to my mind as we were going through that use case. Really quickly, as a digital marketer, if you've got a favorite product and no purchase, it's a great candidate for a retargeting campaign. That's a right audience to kind of go back and say, hey, how can I go through and reach these customers that have clearly shown interest in me and my products, but haven't taken the action that I want yet, whether that's purchasing a product, booking a trip, finding, if I'm in healthcare, finding booking an appointment to come in for care, whatever that might be. Really leveraging that in order to encourage that conversion. We mentioned Tealium Predict at the very front end of the demo as well. That's what we would call kind of a high intent audience. That's pretty, ripe for being able to go through some predictive insight modeling and being able to come out and say, hey, who is most likely of these people who have favorites and no purchase to actually go through and complete that action? Or do we have a bunch of window shoppers, as we would call them, where we don't want to spend our marketing money on that? That's an area where machine learning might be able to come in and help as well. One more question that we'll take here that I think is a pretty good one. So let's go through and jump on that. And Dan, having worked with our customers so much, I think this is a good perspective for you as well. If you wanted to start with Tealium, what would be the first steps you would take? What are kind of the first big wins that you usually see companies, go after when adopting a CDP, let's say?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it depends really on the different organizations and different companies. What you want to do is you want to think about the value that you can drive. And the value that you can drive is going to determine the use cases that you want to prioritize. And the way that you would do that is start to capture the events where your customers are most likely to be, and start capturing those web events typically, or mobile events, wherever your customers are and wherever you have digital touch points. You can start to capture those events and then assign the use cases that are going to drive the most value for your business, and start with those highest value items so you can get immediate value from the platform and drive your business forward. And then the additional use cases can start adding incremental differences very quickly.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think where we see customers get the most success is powering better data to use cases that they may already be running, like retargeting. That is something that is typically done. We go through and we have a couple different retargeting campaigns going on, but maybe with better insight, I'm able to slice and dice my audiences a little better. I'm able to suppress audiences and have a little bit more understanding of who's taken what action that I shouldn't be spending retargeting dollars anymore on. And so I would honestly look at, what use cases do I have in place today, like Dan said, that I can improve, right? What are high value areas where I'm spending a lot of marketing dollars that I want to optimize, get some quick wins, and then move on to some of those aspirational ones, like pulling in call center data and then going through and optimizing a call center experience. It's a wonderful use case. There's companies out there doing that. That might not be the first swing that you take with a CDP if you've got some use cases already going.
Exactly. Great question.
Dan, I think we just want some clarification here on one aspect of your use case here. And I'm going to try and just go through this. And if we don't have an understanding of this, we can go ahead and answer offline. But back to your demo use case, and this will be the last question that we want to run through. If based on your use case, if he's understanding correctly, if a visitor comes to the website, you're collecting data for the CDP, and in that same session, you're logging in. All that data, which was on the website previously, plus the login event, all of that's being brought into Salesforce, or is that being brought into the CDP and then going to Salesforce? Kind of what is the life cycle of data looking like throughout that session? I think some of that was shown in Trace, but maybe we just kind of go and clarify.
Yeah, great question. So what's happening there is Tealium is collecting all of that data and understanding that is a unique visitor to your site. And all that data is being collected into the CDP. Then the moment that you log in, now you've exposed those identifiers that make you a known customer. So you've gone through this journey of unknown customer to known customer. Those known identifiers allow you to start to distribute your data across your tech stack. A lot of those partners within the tech stack require those known identifiers. Salesforce, for example, requires an email address. So when that login occurred, that allowed us to create that connection to Salesforce. And all of that data that happened prior to that login, that was captured by Tealium and assigned to my profile. So you can distribute any parts of my profile to Salesforce or to any of your partners as you're gathering that data, or after you've gathered all of that data. Tealium is storing that and making that readily available because it's assigned to my profile and it exists in a state that allows us to distribute it at any time.
Yep. That's a good answer, and I think a good deep dive on the customer profile aspect of Tealium for sure. I think that is all of the questions that we have going on. If we have not been able to go and get to your question, we will answer that offline, certainly. Dan, thanks for the time. Thanks for the demo. We appreciate everybody who was able to hang out with us for 30 minutes here and talk a little bit of Tealium. Obviously, if you have any questions, please let us know. But we do have some assets that we wanted to bring up as just good next steps on, hey, you've piqued my interest. Where do I go next to kind of learn about tools like Tealium or the CDP industry overall? In the attachments, you'll find links, direct links to all of these assets. But we just released some research, which I think is really, really valuable on that we're calling the State of the CDP 2021, but it's ultimately research from across many different industries on exactly how marketers intend to get value and use customer data platforms in 2021, tackling big challenges like third-party cookie loss, data privacy issues, going through and establishing a central hub for governance. Really nice insights, and nice insights as well on how things might have changed, based on this time last year versus, a year later after we've all kind of experienced changes in our business throughout the pandemic. So State of the CDP 2021, we also have a pretty hefty 70-page guide on that is a definitive guide to customer data platforms. Really good information, and honestly, some answers to the questions that Dan and I got as well from the audience. How should I get started? How should I staff up a CDP? Where exactly should I start to think about use cases? All of that is answered in that definitive guide. It's a really nice asset. And then finally, inside the Customer Data Hub, really going into a little bit more on the components of the Customer Data Hub. I touched on that very briefly in my portion of today's webinar, but if you want to dive a little bit deeper into, hey, exactly what does Tealium IQ Tag Manager look like? Hey, exactly how do you handle server-side tracking and tagging? Hey, exactly what does, I want to go a little bit further into the CDP. We've got a nice write-up that gives kind of an overview of our entire platform for you to go take a look at. So with that said, that is everything. Thank you so much again for spending your morning, evening, afternoon with us. Dan, thank you so much for giving us a look under the hood and walking us through our webinar or our demo and use case today. And I think with that, we're going to call it a webinar. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. If there were questions in the chat that we didn't get to today, we'll answer those offline. And we will, with that, we'll sign off and say thank you again.
Thank you.